I was going to open today's offering with a joke about bread. I've been making sourdough bread and sandwich loaf bread during the lockdown quarantine time, just to give my hands something to do and explore new art. So I was going to open with a bread joke, but honestly, it's kind of crummy and fairly stale. Hi, welcome to my little Hannibal world. Going to continue today with another chapter from Across the Table, my book that I wrote a couple of years ago. Stories from the road and so on. This next chapter's got a little bit of length to it. Not terribly long, but let's go ahead and get to it, okay? The chapter is entitled On the Busk, November 2012. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but I will always be true. Tom Waits. Some of the greatest things about this profession are the fascinating people you get to meet. Occasionally, these humans can have strong opinions of their own, and they can, and will, insert themselves into your art and into your life. How you deal with them is what will build your memories, your experience, and your ability. You have to have friction in order to polish. Another story from the street. It is the day after Thanksgiving. The holiday was full of fellowship and love with my wife's family, in-laws and outlaws. The preceding week was full of triggered memories, so I was awash in nostalgia. I thought it would be fun to dig out the street table and go do some busking in uptown Charlotte. Sharpen my wit, work on some new material, and street test some of my new ideas. So I put on my armor, vest, bowler, apron, tie-dyed shoes, and set forth to ambush the unwary with laughter, amazement, and love. I set up in my old haunt at the corner of College and Trade, nice foot traffic to and from the arena, and outside of my safety net within the epicenter where I usually set up my busk. I wanted honest reactions and immediate feedback. Be careful, in this life, what you ask for. I ran through a few sets and enjoyed some fun people. Toward the end of one routine, I noticed a man in his mid-30s hovering around my outskirts. My initial impression was that he resembled pages stuck together. He resembled Clarence Gilliard, the actor who portrayed Theo, the wisecracking computer tech from the very first Die Hard film. As the hat came down and the crowd slowly dispersed, Theo sidled up to stand beside me. He had a handful of religious tracts. Uh-oh. I've been watching your display, and I have a question. Why do you stand here seducing people with your evil and your witchcraft? Don't you know that hell awaits those who invoke sorcery? Theo said this with a broad smile, so I wasn't entirely sure he wasn't putting me on. I smiled back and explained that it was a show, nothing but card tricks and stories. I attempted to compare my act with movies, and an actor playing the part of a magician, if you will. Right? Theo would have none of it. The more I tried to calmly and rationally explain my position, the louder and more rabid he became in trying to overtalk and overvolume me. Finally, I smiled, tipped my hat, and gave up. I reset my table to start drawing another crowd. Theo tried to step in between me and the people I was addressing, but he was rebuked by a nice lady who was just trying to enjoy the show. Next, he tried snatching my buttons and stickers off the table, but I just took them out of his hands gently. I had no idea what he thought he would accomplish. When I took my materials back, Theo shouted for anyone to hear, "He's trying to steal my Bible. Somebody call the cops." I pointed out that he had no Bible to steal. He cried that it was on his cell phone, and I had tried to rip his cell phones out of his hand to break it. By now, we had a nice little audience, including a bicycle cop who'd heard the commotion and came over to investigate. I returned to the group and started in on my opener, trying hard to ignore the argument that was taking place just behind me. Theo told the officer that I had tried to knock his tracts from his hand and steal his Bible. He claimed I had assaulted him by poking him with my belly. But I know this cop. I'd known this cop a while. He'd watched many a street show of mine and knows exactly what my demeanor is and how I deal with people. My friend took me aside and asked if any of the accusations were true. Of course they weren't, but he had to ask, as it was his job. Theo demanded that the bike cop write up a report. The officer declined since there was no witness, no one was injured, and Theo was clearly still in possession of all of his property. The cop asked Theo to move to another part of the street, but, being the fine, upstanding American that he surely is, Theo protested that he would stand anywhere, say what he wished, and shouted, "Read the First Amendment. I have freedom of speech." I turned back to my group and waited that was waiting for me at the table, determined just to ignore him. Theo began walking in a circle around me and the crowd, which was getting bigger simply because of the spectacle that was being created. He started chanting, and this is a direct quote: "I rebuke this sorcerer. Do not let his lies infect the minds of the innocent. He is a child of Lucifer and an admitted deceiver. I beseech a swift death to him. Infect his children with cancer. Cast him down in the dirt and let him suffer among the vipers." I started recording. This is not in the book. This is an aside. I started recording when he started marching around the table and saying these things. So this is an exact quote. I still have the audio. This was repeated as he marched around and around. He invoked the gods to send a bus careening off the street and up on the sidewalk to do me bodily harm. I was stunned, to say the least. It took everything within me not to engage him further. I was now an angry human, and I have used my fists in my darker past. Meanwhile, the crowd grew and grew. Money was tossed on the table defiantly in front of Theo before the hat even came near. Cheers and laughter filled the street. I know some of it was put on in order to drown the rantings of Theo, but it was an absolute awesome spectacle. I wound them up to a fervor with Theo while Theo fanned the flames. On a strictly monetary note, I doubled what my usual take would have been for a night like this with one show. 3 things happened in that little time span. First, I preached my own philosophy of love and art with card tricks. Second, people were inspired because I didn't give up, even in the face of this harsh adversity. Allow me that little taste of pride, please. I don't dwell there, but I'm proud I held my ground and didn't engage him on his own level. Third, Theo killed his credibility and made a fool of himself. He preached hate, and hate has no place in a Hannibal show. I am often touched by how often righteous, self-labeled Christians will do just that, will preach hate, hoping to strengthen their case. I finished, and I let the crowd go before we blocked the sidewalk traffic completely. I set about straightening things up. There were now 4 or 5 of Charlotte's finest standing nearby, including a couple of security guards from the nearby Epicenter and the Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Theo was very upset that they weren't doing anything to stop me. He demanded to see my permit while cursing and insulting me to my face, and that made me sad. Sad for him. Finally, Theo came in close for one last prayer. He whispered it so just I could hear. "You're lucky there are cops and cameras here. Next time I see you, it's going to be just you and me. You remember the story of when Peter cut off the soldier's ear in the Bible? Well, that's me. You won't be laughing then." Hilariously, I thought, "Are you Peter? Are you the soldier? Are you the ear? I'm not really getting what role you think you're playing in this story." I couldn't help myself. I burst into uncontrollable laughter. The whole scene was ludicrous. Unfortunately, at that moment, I let my emotion and my mouth get the better of me. I replied, "But I'm laughing now, though. I really am. You just helped me make a ton of money and a whole bunch of new fans. I really hope you're here every night that I'm working. We could make a great team. Would you like a cut of the money we just made?" Now, please forgive me for this. I do feel horrible about the explosion, but it's my story. This is my disclosure. I'm going to tell you the warts and the scars and everything. Theo was so outraged, I really thought he was going to take a swing at me right there. I packed up my table and I walked off. I wasn't the bigger man. I had stooped to his level, but I did walk away. As I went, I heard the officers restraining Theo from following me. He was screaming about his rights and how God was going to rain fire down on me and everyone else that participated. I don't really know how to wrap this up. What did we learn here, boys and girls? Take a long, honest look at what you are sowing. Are you spreading love or are you spreading anger? Listen to the words you say. Life and death are created on the tongue. I wonder what the children in my audience thought of the whole carnival. Whose message got through the strongest? What are you saying with your own presentation in the way that you display your own art, in the way you display your own heart? Make no mistake, if you take a stage or perform for anyone, you are making a statement of some sort. Make sure your presentation is clear. Sadly, I cannot count on a Theo being there every time. Would anybody like a job protesting me? We could really clean up. Across the table, there'll be a link down below. One of the things that didn't make the editing in the story was that Theo challenged me about, are you just lying to people or are you doing black magic? And I said, I'm just lying to people. I'm just doing card tricks, and I'm trying to get them a little bit of happiness and a little bit of laughter. It turns out, as an epilogue to this story, Theo did not come there looking for me. He had a handful of tracks because he was going to go down and protest the basketball game that was happening at the local arena, which was just a couple of blocks away. So he was on his way to protest the idol worship that was happening at the basketball game, and I distracted him from his noble mission. Maybe he had more fun with me. I don't know. Life and death are created on the tongue. What comes out of your mouth should be what your heart actually believes. And perhaps an extra moment to try to temper anger would be the best way. Lead with love, not with hate. More later, huh? It's been a heavy week. I'm going to go ahead and tell you it's only Tuesday, and it's been a heavy week. But I'll tell you about that in another video. Love you. I really sincerely hope there is love where you are.